The Grind is sponsored by the 74million.org. The 74 is an award-winning, nonprofit education news website, which believes that education should be front-page news every day. So I'm actually here with editorial director Steve Snyder. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Mark.
So Steve, can you tell us about some issues that you're covering over at the 74?
Well, one topic we've started covering in much greater depth is college completion.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, most people tend to think about schooling as high school and college, two very different things, and we measure graduation rate as the sign that, like, high school got its job done and now it's off the hook. But we've started covering, an array of school networks that are starting to set the bar a little higher, and they've started measuring the students that come in at 9th grade, how many of those students are going on to get a college degree within 6 years of entering. So they're considering it their job to guide kids from middle school all the way through to their first job.
So why do you guys care about that?
Because every kid deserves a chance at, going up the ladder of the working world, and far too many thus far have been getting left behind, either not finishing high school or starting college but then quickly dropping out. So I think this is an attempt by many school leaders to fix that.
So where can we learn more?
We're covering topics like that every day, the74million.org.
Hey, it's The Grind, everybody. I'm Mark. I'm an educational consultant.
I'm Warren. I'm a podcast producer. And you know what we both are?
What's that, Warren?
Why, we're cisgendered men. And I only point that out because that fact doesn't exactly make us the most qualified humans on Earth to discuss today's topic.
Right. Today we're talking about women, or female-identifying individuals, and we're taking on some of the current challenges facing them in the workforce.
So right off the bat, we just want to recognize that these are hardships that we don't really have a place to speculate about. But what we can do, and the least we can do, is to talk to people who do have a handle on the subject.
And bounce these ideas off some of the students that we're following, a couple of which you might remember from previous episodes, just to get some of their perspectives.
So Mark, who did you find for us to talk to?
Okay, I reached out to Annie Dean. Annie has a company based out of New York that I've been following. It's called WERK, and that's work with an E instead of an O, so WERK.
Got it.
And what WERK aims to do is to confront and solve common problems facing women in the workforce. So more on that in a bit. But first, I wanted to get to know Annie and understand what drove her to start this company.
I'm Annie Dean. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of WERK. Prior to being at WERK, I was a corporate attorney, and I'm a mother of two in New York City.
So tell me a bit about WERK, and maybe let's start with the problem that you were trying to address with WERK.
Absolutely. So, obviously every founder comes to their business from a personal perspective. And I certainly, I started out in big law, and I certainly had an experience after my first son was born that I really felt like my trajectory in terms of leadership was severely diminished as a result of his birth. But the specific things that I was feeling were, I changed my name to my maiden name after I got pregnant, and there was a lot of ridicule about that. I was asked to stay overnight at the law firm at 36 weeks pregnant, which landed me in the hospital. I was just treated in a way that felt less serious. So that really ruined my confidence.
So all of that was while Annie was pregnant, and it didn't get easier after her son was born.
I could not stay up with my work. I could not advance. I was not getting the opportunities that I wanted. People were viewing me as this frazzled mother instead of the really serious, ambitious woman that they had seen me as prior to his birth. I was unhappy at home. I was feeling unsatisfied with the level of my interaction with my son. And when I thought about what would work for me in terms of making that environment healthy, both from a personal and a professional level, I knew it just had to do with rearranging the workday to accommodate the fact that I wanted to be home with my son sometimes, and I could just put him to bed and then go back to work. I knew that I didn't want the scope of my job to change, or necessarily even the hours worked to change. I just needed the way that the structure looked like to honor what I was needing. And I remember sitting at that law firm desk and thinking, thinking, okay, there's no one to really talk about this with, because the women who are above me went through this in a totally different way. And the women below me don't really recognize that this is a problem yet. And the people who are my peers don't feel like they can advocate for what they need. But if I look at this from a more macro sense, I get the feeling that they don't want me here anymore. And what does that mean? Does that mean that women who have children don't belong at top law firms? And when I came to that conclusion, that the idea that women, maybe generally with children, do not belong in these top professional environments, I was like, this is not fair and this is not right. And there needs to be a systemic solution and a tide change in terms of the way that we look at how work looks like, and rectify it.
Wow. So I have to balance a moderately busy workload.
Don't sell yourself short.
The crap she has to go through, it's not in my realm. So how does work help? Wait, what is work?
Yeah, good question. So it's a marketplace. It's a job marketplace for women who want jobs that have flexibility built in.
Well, what does that mean? What kind of jobs are up there?
So right now, there's a lot of like tech jobs and jobs from companies that are more innovative and like forward thinking about these issues. But frankly, any job can have flexibility built in.
And what's really exciting about what we're doing is that there's no recruitment channel out there today that allows people to view jobs by flexibility. We pre-negotiate everything with companies. And what's unique about what we've done is we've spent a year trying to understand what flexibility is. So basically, nobody understands what flexibility is. And it's often presented with bias and emotional baggage. So we looked at top academic studies. We spoke to thousands of people. We spoke to hundreds of hiring managers. And we built a platform that uses a framework called the Flexiverse.
Okay, I can't resist anymore. Can we take a journey to the Flexiverse?
Yes.
And can you walk me through the Flexiverse?
Absolutely. So in terms of our flexibility products, so we have some that are already quite well known. So remote opportunities. Obviously, those are work from anywhere opportunities. Part-time role. That for us, it's about reduction of hours, but it's still an advancement track role. Travel light, we assume that travel light jobs are less than 10% travel. Desk plus, and that means that you've come to an arrangement where you can work some percentage of your week outside of the traditional office setting. Time shift is the idea of standardly unconventional hours. So you have a set schedule that's different than everybody else. And then finally, the last type of flexibility that we work with is sort of the most innovative, and it's called micro agility. So this is the idea that you can come in late or leave early or step away from your work for a couple of hours in order to manage something that might come up in your life. No questions asked.
And so you're working with companies to code the jobs they post on Work based on where they sit on your Flexiverse.
That's right. So in order to qualify to post a role on Work, they need to have at least one type of flexibility.
Are there any trade-offs that you would have to make if you were looking to apply for a job on Work?
What do you mean by trade-offs?
Well, I mean, my head went to some of the things that you were talking about before in terms of, for example, within the context of places I've worked, these flexible options are available, but yes, you step off the partner track, you go to 80% of your salary. So those are what I mean by trade-offs. But you're telling me that any job on your site has none of those trade-offs baked in.
Those companies don't really get it.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I can see how a new mom or someone with a family would really find that useful. But what if you're a student who just recently graduated? How does this help you?
Yeah, they might not even really be thinking about it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure about that. So I called up Twin and Amina, and I asked both of them their perspective on Work. All right, so first up is Twin. She's a senior at the University of Washington. She's from the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. So here's what she thinks.
I've been in a relationship for a really long time. I've definitely thought about because I think our relationship is very mature since we've been together for so long that it just naturally, I would think at some point I'm going to have kids and I want to work somewhere that supports that can be flexible and understanding and caring about that. And for me, it is scary because I feel like as a woman, we have to be successful, in terms of money, we have to have a career and we have to do all this earning and stuff. But then we also have to be the person who is carrying a child in the future potentially and taking the time off for that. And I think it's hard to balance your family and your career.
So her solution, right, is that she has this job market for jobs that could allow you that opportunity. You know, some of them are like jobs where you can work remote. You don't ever have to go into the office. You know, is that the kind of solution that is intriguing to you given your goals?
No, I feel like for me, I just want to stop working.
Yeah.
I just don't want to work at some point. Like, I just want to take time off completely for a few years.
Yeah.
And then maybe get back to remote, and then like eventually transition back to like normal work.
So you could take some time off for a few years and then kind of ramp back up and maybe
slowly.
using like the job site during that period.
Yeah. Honestly, like in my dream like future life, I just don't want to work. I just want to just be at home. I kind of want to be like a stay-at-home mom, if I were to be very honest.
Okay, so that's interesting. She's got a boyfriend. She's planning her life around the possibility of having kids, but she's still not super into work. Do we have another take on this?
Yeah, we do. I also talked to Amina. She's a senior at the University of Washington as well, and also a Washington State Opportunity Scholarship recipient. Here's what she thinks.
My thing was, like, my mom was a housewife, and I wouldn't be the person that I am without her raising me. Like, she was there, she picked us up from school, she made us lunch. Like, it would have been hard for us to not have my mom, like our mom there when we came back home from school and we were leaving to school. So if I'm having kids, I want them to have that kind of feeling, like someone picking them up from school, having like, you know, homemade cooked lunches and dinners. And I think like if I'm thinking of career like in emergency medicine, for example, that's going to be hard for them to have like a stable, balanced life. And I think having a partner that's willing to do the things that my mom has done would be helpful.
All right, so let me ask you about her solution. Okay. So she started this job website called WERK.
Okay.
Where she pre-negotiates flexibility into the jobs that she posts on her site. So an example of flexibility would be you can work remotely. So you can work from home.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that feel like a fix to you to this challenge? Does that kind of solution appeal to you?
With my current career path goal, I honestly, I don't see it working out, because I don't think as a doctor I have the choice to like call in sick, right? Because I have all these patients that I have to take care of, all these responsibilities that I just can't sleep in for. So I don't think that would be feasible in careers in medicine.
And do you think there are special challenges being a woman in medicine?
There's a lack of women in medicine, especially specific specialties, right? And there are many reasons for that. But I think being an only woman, because from my experiences of being like the only Black person in a classroom, it's going to be a constant proving. Like, I just have to constantly prove to others, whether they're accepting of me or not, prove to them that I'm still like capable of doing my job just as well as they are, and more. Yeah. I think and more is the key here, because I have to being average is not enough. I have to like push and be the best in whatever that I do.
Is this something you talk about with your female friends a lot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we complain. I mean, like we talk about it. I mean, the discriminations are like apparent, and the conversations. So, like the intersectionality of who I am, like a Black Muslim woman, is difficult for me to have those conversations with like my white friends, my white women friends, right? Because I have so many other barriers along my pathway. So it would be difficult for them to understand that or kind of relate to that. So when I do have conversations with my Muslim Black friends, women, we can relate to a lot of the things that we go through, and sometimes that like how we're perceived in society and how we have to like destroy those stereotypes. And so like going into our professional world, we have to deal with that too, and we have to constantly push back those stereotypes and pave the way for women of color.
So, Mark, it sounds like Twin and Amina might not be feeling the whole Flexiverse thing.
Yeah, it sort of surprised me. I got to admit, I thought they'd be more excited about it. So I asked Annie what she thought about their reaction. And then what would you say to somebody who is just starting their career out, now, should they be thinking about the types of trade-offs that, I totally understand what you're saying, and I buy it that no job, on your site has, inherent trade-offs when it comes to, dollars or career track. But I do think the life just has trade-offs, right? I mean, that's just part of, okay, this might be I'm going to put it out there that I don't think, people can really truly have everything the way they want it. You need to be thinking about trade-offs throughout your life. And part of that's, I want to be, healthy, and it could be down to that. It could be about the way relationship you want to have with your partner. And as you get older, it tends to me, at least, to seem like the trade-offs increase. At the beginning of your career, where you may seem more free and uninhibited, should you be thinking, okay, eventually I'll be 35 and I need to think about this? Or should you kind of take more of a free form approach at the beginning of your career and then like you kind of deal with it when it comes?
One of our core things that we think about in our business, and we say this probably 10 times a day, is don't solve a problem that you don't have.
Yeah. And what's an example of solving a problem that you don't have yet?
Well, looking at a maternity leave policy and making the decision of, whether or not you're going to take a job based on whether they have parental leave. My thought is that you should go for the job that you care most about, that you don't have time to waste in your life to do things that you don't care about or are not giving you a professional or intellectual reward. And when the time comes for you to take advantage of that maternity leave or to invent a paternity leave, you'll go to the head of the company and put together a strategic plan about why they are making a mistake by not having that maternity leave. You have a voice. You have the ability to affect change. Don't make decisions based on other people's priorities.
Okay, so even Annie thinks that this might not be the best thing for people who are fresh out of school. But what do working mothers actually think of this thing?
I was wondering the same thing, Warren. So I sat down with my friend Alana. She just became a working mother. I wanted to see what she thought.
So I think it's really great. And I can understand why as a 22-year-old you sort of wouldn't get it. Because I think between being 22 and when I actually had kids, I've thought, well, I wouldn't need something like that because I won't be working when I have kids. Or I wouldn't need something like that because it doesn't matter whether or not I have kids. I'm still going to be going all out in my career. And then now that I've actually had kids, I still want to be working, but I want to be home too. And so I will say it is very difficult to screen for jobs that have a culture of flexibility, right? So you could interview for 20 different jobs and not really find out who's going to allow you that flexibility until the end of the interview process. And then the fact that you need it might make you less competitive than another candidate. So to be able to find a job that's already pre-screened for that and they know that's something that they're willing to look for, I think is great. And for companies too, I think they know that they want to make a commitment to have working moms in their talent pipeline in general, but then with any given job, what do you apply that to, right? So you're always looking for the most competitive candidate for every given job, and then you end up with this pipeline that has no working moms in it when you know that at the beginning you wanted to. So I think it's great for companies too to be able to set aside and say, okay, this is a great job for a mom. Let's go and find one.
Yeah, I also think there's kind of like a labor arbitrage opportunity for employers, right? I mean, if a lot of really intelligent mothers or fathers, frankly, are dropping out of the workforce because they feel like they can't find that flexibility, if I offer the right type of thing for that, I'm going to scoop up a bunch of really talented people, right?
Right. So I just hired for a job where I actually really did need someone who was full-time. And so we ended up hiring someone who was full-time. But I needed someone who was full-time and kind of like right out of college. I ended up getting applications from several working moms who were, say, PhDs, 20 years of experience, uber qualified, but they only wanted to do 15 hours. They only wanted to do project-based work. They're applying because they're just like, okay, this looks interesting. Maybe there's a chance. And it didn't work for the job that I was hiring for. It could work in the future, but I do think you're right. There's an incredible amount of talent out there that we just aren't necessarily designing jobs for that talent, but we could really use it.
So I think part of the issue that our 22-year-olds sort of were facing was they didn't want to compromise, right? One of them, the kind of both things you articulated were true. One of them didn't want to compromise on being a mother. she said, when I'm a mother, I don't want to work. I want to give 100% of myself to that. The other one didn't want to compromise on being a doctor. She's like, I'm going to be a surgeon. I'm going to be in surgery every night. Like, I need a husband who's going to stay home because I don't want to compromise in any way on this, right? So there's this question of like, can you have it all, right? It's often said as a woman, but I think it could be as a parent in general. Is that a helpful way to think about things? And how do you think about it for your whole life?
I don't think about the "can I have it all" construct very much. I also think the work-life balance paradigm is not super helpful, where we think of things as like trade-offs. I guess I've tried to think about it more as a trade-up. So when I was pregnant, I felt like I'm about to do something really meaningful with my life. And if I'm going to continue to push the gas on the career pedal or push on the gas pedal of my career, whatever that would be.
You totally sold it. At first I was like, that's awesome. That's a great story.
Then what I'm doing work-wise also needs to be equally meaningful. And so I actually changed jobs when I was pregnant to do something that felt much more meaningful. And it's also a job where I have the flexibility, right? So it's a job that just the whole thing works. It's meaningful work. It's work that I want to be doing, and it's sort of set up in a way that I can do it and feel like I'm giving my all at being a mom. And I don't feel like I took a step back or a step down.
So that's another criticism I say that people have. So Annie would say, we guarantee any job on the platform, you're going to get paid the same amount as if it was a full-time job or whatever the equivalent is in that office. You're not going to lose anything in terms of promotion, career track. And it's hard because we're not looking at those jobs. But if someone told you that, would you buy it?
I guess based on my experience, I would buy it. If I didn't have my experience, maybe I'd be skeptical. But I do think that flexible jobs, they don't need to be a step back, but they do look different, right? So if you're committed to being in a surgery room every night, then it's hard to not be in a surgery room every night and have that be the same job. But if you have a more flexible definition of what it can look like to make a great contribution to medicine and patients' lives, then there's tons of jobs where you can have that impact, but you also can be home every night.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Alana.
Thank you.
It seems like there's a lot of challenges for women out there, and Annie's doing some good work to combat these issues. But aren't some of these issues also things men should think about? Men have kids too. You know, I think Annie would probably be comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think equal parenting and gender-neutral access to parent-friendly programs is a key issue of this century. So I think right now there's still a huge amount of stigma around the fact that women are supposed to have jobs like they don't have children and raise their children like they don't have a job. So I think a lot of the solution is about empowering men to also be vocal parents and to give them, activate them in this conversation and to build companies that support and are respectful of men's desires and need to be equal parents.
I think it makes sense to brand this as a woman-focused product.
Yeah.
But at the same time, flexibility can help all parents and just all people in general, right?
Yeah, flexibility seems like it's necessary.
I don't think there needs to be a WERK for men or like a MERK, but
no.
I do think that men should try to negotiate flexibility into their jobs as well. I mean, especially because we see more and more men, and I'll put myself into this category, who one day wants to be a co-parent, or maybe even a lead parent to my kids. And I know a lot of men these days who see themselves as being a primary caregiver. That's great. We should encourage people to do whatever they feel best fits with their desires and their partner's desires. If only Hillary Clinton had won the election. Okay, I promise I won't say anything more. But that was one of her main issues, okay?
As long as you never say Merc again, I'm fine.
Merc. Merc is like male work. All right, let's do some thank yous here for the WERK episode. I mean, first of all, we should thank
Annie Dean.
Annie Dean. All right, you can learn more about WERK at saywerk.com. Like say work.
SAYWERK.
Yeah, .com. We also want to thank Amina and Twin. Thank you guys for weighing in. We want to thank Alana Dunnigan. Thank you. I want to thank the folks who produce our music. PG Boo Music. You can find him at Instagram at PG Boo Music.
I love PG Boo.
I love PG Boo, right? He's great.
We can also thank Trackman Productions. Once again, thanks for lending us your tunes.
Best value on the internet. All right. We forgetting anybody? Oh, of course. We always have to thank the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. You guys literally make this show happen.
Yeah, I met them last week on assignment.
Cool guys, right?
Yeah, they're doing really good work, and it's great.
It's really good. All right. Well, I guess that's all for today. So thank you again for listening to The Grind, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Grind away.
Grind forth.
Ooh. That's a good one.
Yeah. All right, we're sticking with it.